Do you remember the wheel that used to just topple over once you go to a stop sign, or when you want to start riding it, just doesn't want to go with you? And do you remember the wheel that used to just not want to accelerate at all because it's so heavy, the center of mass is so high, and it just requires so much force and weight in order to accelerate and brake? Woohoo! Well, I do remember this wheel. It's called the V13. But now, with the couple of changes that I made to the V13, which I'm going to talk about in this video, this completely changed, and the V13 became one of my favorite wheels to ride in everyday scenarios, oftentimes beating, just by pure choice, even the Pattern, the S22 Pro, and my veteran Sherman Max. So what happened? Let me tell you more about it. Wrongway. So hi, and welcome to Wrongway. Well, I guess I should have said that earlier. Anyways, I'm not going to force you to watch the whole video in order to find out what those modifications are. I'm going to tell you right away because why not? So there's 6 things I changed in the V13 compared to the original setup that I had that came from InMotion. First of all, the most important change is the suspension delete kit. This is a kit which was available on the demo units of the V13, and it was advertised by InMotion that this kit is going to be available in later batches of the models, which is not the case anymore. So I hope that it will be available again, or at least make it available as a aftermarket kit, because dude, this suspension delete kit, I really like it. I'm going to tell you what changes it made to the ride a bit later. Second thing that changed is I made the pedals a bit lower. There is several pedal settings on the V13. I wasn't playing about with that too much before, and now with the suspension delete kit, I put it on the lowest setting. This is the second difference. Third difference is the tire. I have a CST, well, very old, I think it's from 2016, tire on the V13. It's a bit of a smaller tire than the OG measurement. Now, if you want to get a street tire for the V13 with the same dimensions as the Knobby, it is a 90-90-16. So 16 being the rim diameter. And I bought a 80-90-16, which does work, and it has some upsides and downsides. Just letting you know what the change is. This is a CST street tire, no idea what the name of it is. Fourth thing that changed is, well, I went from stock pads to the Kinetic Pads. I love those pads. I put them on all of my wheels. There's also a discount Wrongway if you want to get yourself a pair of those. The fifth change is now I have a seat for the V13, so this is great. I initially thought that it will be tickling my anus a bit too much, but it doesn't. So it's a pretty cool seat. I needed to get used to it, but it's nice. And no, it doesn't actually tickle your anus, at least in the position that I've put it in. Well, I thought there'd be 6 things, but I can't remember the 6th anymore now, so maybe I'll add it in post, but maybe there was just 5 things. Anyways, those are the mods. Now I'm gonna tell you about 5 things that those mods impacted about the ride and general use of the InMotion V13 in day-to-day scenarios. All right, so the first drastic change is the balance and the weight distribution. When riding the V13 with suspension, I had a lot of trouble just maintaining balance on it, especially when riding slow. And if you came to a stop, you wanted to put your foot down, it was just bonking on the one side or another. It was very difficult, or it required more balance, more force to keep it upright. And now it is just effortless. Like, look at it. I'm riding very slow, keeps the balance, no problem. I can go even pendulums, and it works. That's not something I could do earlier. If you want to go on one foot, you want to stop, even like putting the wheel to the side a bit. Well, not too much. Oh, come on, stop. I guess that's burn mode for you. Pretty weird, but even a bit to the side, it works well. Well, certainly a lot better than on the V13 with suspension. The lower center of mass makes it a lot more stable. So at all speeds pretty much that I'm riding on, the batteries are, well, they're lower to the ground as you can see now. And therefore, I just have more comfort riding on this wheel. I don't feel like if I lean too much, I get to this point and it just goes. And now I'm pretty much carving on this wheel all the time, all day, all night, because it's just so nice. It's just a slalom everywhere. Some might say a carving nirvana, Stefan Egnulf. That's the first thing that changed, balance. It's a lot better now. Oh, I think I forgot to add is that it's a lot easier to push around in stores nowadays. That is because center of mass is lower, so it's just like easy to push now. It's not a problem. Very easy, actually. Not a big issue. With suspension and higher center of mass, it was a pain to keep it, to push it in stores. Let's get to the second thing. Well, the second thing that changed is that the footplates are lower now. They're lower to the ground. And this brings a variety of benefits, but also some drawbacks. Let's talk about the benefits first. Well, the benefit is that it's a lot easier to accelerate and brake on this wheel now. Now, it's not a light wheel by any means, but now it's just manageable. I don't feel like I need to have, 100 kilograms of weight, 120 kilograms of weight to make this wheel go anywhere. Or I just need to lean a lot to the front, to the back just to go somewhere. Now it's manageable. It's not effortless like on a Sherman or on the Patton even. It's better compared to a Monster that I was trying recently with Evo. He has a Monster 22-inch wheel that he's trying right now. The Monster is a lot lighter, but this is just doable now. It feels like a Monster Pro, a bit heavier, but with more torque. I think that the software and the feeling I get here with the torque on the V13 is just a bit better than on the Monster Pro. Oh, this wheel is not available nowadays anyways, but those who know the Monster Pro, they know. So with those lower foot plates, it's just so much more comfortable to ride, more effortless, it's manageable, and you have a better center of gravity. So even carving a bit while seated, carving while standing up, it just works a lot better. It's also not that likely to clip the pedal. Those pedals are as low as on the veteran Sherman, pretty much, but that's something that I'm used to. I ride non-suspension wheels, I ride suspension wheels, and this is just fine. If you go off-road, it will be troublesome. It's easier to clip a pedal if you take a very sharp turn, but I didn't notice this problem. I definitely need to try the lower pedal setting also while using suspension. It will be not as close to the ground and as far from the axle though, so it will be definitely not as zippy and nice to ride, nice to accelerate and brake as without suspension. All right, so what difference does the smaller street tire make? Well, first of all, it is slightly smaller in diameter, so I feel like it could be a bit easier to accelerate and brake on it compared to the bigger off-road knobby tire. And the second thing is that it's a street tire. I do prefer street tires on electric unicycles. It's just a bit better for me to ride in the city, and off-road as I'm riding right now, it's still good enough. I don't feel like I need necessarily a off-road tire in order to get to the city. This tire is a bit narrower, so I feel like I need to lean the wheel a bit more in order to do the turn compared to a wider street tire, but I just gotten so used to it actually. I almost regret ordering the wider tire, but well, as a reviewer, I need to check out the wider tire as well. Well, at least that's what I tell to myself in order to buy more stupid shit. Anyways, with the street tire, I enjoy the ride a lot more on the V13, especially on street. It just works well. Yeah, I think more EUCs should at least have the option to take a street tire and a off-road tire, whatever you prefer. Or well, semi-street, semi-off-road. Anyways, I didn't know we have a bike path here. So the fourth thing that changed is that there is a bit more distance now between the top part of the shell where the seat is, well, which I got recently anyways, and the foot plates. So because I was riding in a higher pedal setting before, I don't know how high it is compared to the pedal setting on the suspension, the Leatt hangers. I have more distance to this on the side of the shell. So if I sit down, I am not crouching on the wheel. I don't have my legs like this, like I have it on my Veteran Sherman Max, even with the higher seat. So with this bigger distance, it's a lot better to ride seated, even with my full Kinetic Pads on, because I feel like, ooh, see, I could brake in time. I feel like it's just easier to be seated on this wheel. You just do it so nicely, there's balance. And I thought initially that with the higher distance and having more shell on the side here, it will be troublesome now to make turns, as the wheel will feel too wide, bulky, high, as I had this feeling on the Veteran Abrams, but that is not the case at all. The V13 is narrow enough to not have this problem. So even with the larger distance between footplate and top shell of the wheel, this wheel performs amazingly well and very nicely. Now, the fifth and last thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to the differences between the OG setup of the V13 compared to my setup right now is the lack of suspension. Now, I have no suspension on this wheel now, which, come on. Don't you hate to see it? And what am I supposed to do then? Is it really closed? It's... Why do you do things like this? Why? Well, anyways, now that I continue on the bike path, which hopefully continues now. Now. What am I supposed to do? Now, I was actually scared of the suspension delete. I thought that, well, 50 kilogram wheel, I just shaved maybe 2 or 3 kilograms with the removing of the suspension elements, will be terrible to ride on the V13. And it turns out that it's not actually the case. Well, at least for me. I did ride, and I do ride a lot of non-suspension wheels still. I know that a lot of you guys transfer to suspension and just suspension. You can't get back to non-suspension. For me, as a rider that rides more than 4 years anyways, I'm used to no suspension, and there are things that I like about it. So what about comfort? Well, the comfort is fine for me. For me, it's good enough, and actually I feel like it's more comfortable on asphalt and good roads, even slightly bumpy roads, but still on concrete and asphalt, than the Veteran Sherman Max. It's just so smooth and it's so stable. Almost the stability makes up for the fact that a 50 kilogram wheel jots you around. But as said, it's not as bad. I do like the ride a lot of the V13, and that's why I choose it a lot of the times for longer rides, even though I would be more comfortable with the bigger range of the Sherman on this ride. But I just want the comfort and like easy sitting, stability, and just the feeling of the V13 without suspension. What about off-road? Off-road is terrible. Like, you don't want to get this with this wheel off-road. If there's any sort of thing that resembles a bigger bump, this thing just throws you around. It's violent. Dropping off a curb, it's absolutely terrible. Every time I want to drop off a curb, I'm just generally bracing myself. I try to do this mod. I try to, you know, even out a little. I try to change my position. Nothing helps. Dropping off of a curb with a 50 kilogram wheel is just terrible. So this is what happens when you don't have suspension on the V13. So before, when I was taking the V13, it was more like a, you know, rapid train TGV type of thing. Train grande vitesse, or grosse vitesse, I think grande vitesse. It would just, you know, fly over all of the bumps, and I could just go fast from one place to the other without worrying too much about the state of the road, etc., etc. Now, with the suspension gone, it's more of a sporty wheel that requires a lot of effort to accelerate and brake, if that makes sense. The turning is amazing. I love the turning so much now. It feels so planted. I can control it very precisely, and the InMotion software works great with that. It's more of a type of wheel that I like. It's more sporty, it's more fun. It's, well, you can feel a lot of the imperfections of the roads a lot more now, but it feels genuinely better. Well, let's drop down the curb. For me, it feels genuinely better than the Veteran Sherman Max. So, you know, upsides and downsides. And once you get on a nice piece of asphalt, dude, this is just amazing. So the lack of suspension, of course, has its upsides and downsides. As you know, for my type of riding, I just ride around Warsaw. Usually I have some pretty good asphalt paths, even going outside of the city if I don't do much off-road. And on a non-suspension wheel, I do prefer not to go off-road. It's plenty enough, and I prefer to have this slightly less comfortable setup in order to have more stability, an easier ride, easier acceleration, easier braking, a more manageable ride, because as said, with suspension, the V13 is just hard to manage. It's a lot to manage, just like me. Oh, bump, ooh. So with that said, this is the V13 without suspension. Let me know what you think about this video. I had 2 coffees, probably that's why I'm so energized in this video. But I'm also just very genuinely excited and happy about the possibility that InMotion gave us this suspension delayed option. So I hope they bring it back. At least bring it back to let us buy it if you don't just include it in a box, which you should because you advertise it in InMotion. But yeah, if you're still here, leave a like on the video, subscribe to see more content like this. I have a beautiful road ahead of me. I'm gonna enjoy it on InMotion V13 without suspension. They should make it available without suspension, cheaper. Make it the V13N, like the Bigodi XN. Oh my God, this is so fun! Oh my God! Woo-hoo-hoo! This is just perfect! Right, you need to see this. You need to see this.